You may have noticed the massive desert appearing in the far distance off Rifko, or the giant crack in the ground forming ice, freezing the river slash small lake that was near the Raider faction. Don't be scared. That's a side effect of the loop. And before I explain all this, I know a bit more about this stuff. I've been doing this for years. Please don't hate me. I never thought to talk about the loop because a lot of time people just don't know how to question it. But the Raider faction questioned me the other day about this giant crack and wanted answers. So, might as well make myself clear and explain everything. We aren't living in a normal reality. We aren't living in a reality where everything is crystal clear. Mainly because we are living in a looped reality. Now, what that just means is that out of every time a new timeline is existent, or something changes in a different place or time, it basically switches how this reality is, and basically switches up how certain things have to be affected. Now, an example of this was the recent change during Christmas time when the abandoned satellite tower randomly turned into a Freezy's ice cream. Now, you might be thinking, why did that happen? In an alternate universe, or alternate universal theory, there probably would have been an ice cream store up there. So instead of completely erasing the place, they got merged into one building, and the entire ground above turned into snow. This can also explain the jungle trees in the Miner faction, the jungle trees in the Raider, the spruce trees in the Raider faction, and the jungle trees in the Kingdom faction. Now, to also explain the situation, I have to explain what the loop is to anyone that doesn't know. And for simple terms, the loop is just a rewind button. For every time something bad happens, the loop will kick in and, well, undo the mess, but will also get a bit more corrupted and drop something from out of nowhere into existence. This can also be said about the Porkington Manor, which just randomly popped up out of nowhere and slamming into the ground. This can also explain why the Raider faction now has a giant chicken restaurant that was just tossed there, and the other restaurants as well. Most of the time, we don't talk about this, because in the very end, no one wants to hear some nerdy person talk about mumbo-jumbo about some time-loopy mechanism, blah 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 bullcrap. But this is important. Just recently, we have had a loop failure, actually. And that's not good. A loop failure, to anyone who doesn't know, which you probably don't, it just means that the loop failed to correct a certain mistake and started to affect time as a example. Now, you might be thinking, what is this example? Well, if you didn't notice, going extremely far off from where the Rifko abandoned surface location is a soon-to-be ginormous desert with a strange one structure in the middle. That's not supposed to happen. What that is in an alternate world, timeline, or coincidental event, the land on the outer area of the location became dead, dried out, and turned into a desert. It's not supposed to do that. And for some reason, the loop failed to correct it, and now is creating a desert on the outer area for who knows what to exist. As well as this, it was also noted that a giant frozen crack went through the ground and froze one of the lakes that were nearby the Raider faction. These are not supposed to happen. Now, would I say to mess with these materials? I would say no. Because in the very end, these don't seem to be logical, at most. These also don't seem to be the very most common effects of a loop error. So, until you can get the loop fixed, please don't mess with these locations. But, to explain the loop in a simplistic term for any kind of person to hear, the loop is just I guess, a setback. If something goes wrong, the loop will just fix it. This is why the village faction has so many weird shaped houses, like houses on top of trees and two-story houses. Another mountain from corruption that happened about a year ago. Wooden panels and two extra houses and extra storage units and a half castle, half house. These are all part of the loop's goal. It uses these effects to basically conceal and update the situation as it goes along, rather than completely reset the data and start from scratch. Doing that would take up a lot more energy, and it seems that it's been throwing in older locations from the first and second universe. As known, those two locations are the Swamp City, which seems to be a mix of the mini New York City and Swampsville, which is somehow a location from both the first and second universe. It can also be said that some of the restaurants are also somewhat from different places, though one of them is specifically from a place that I do remember visiting. I remember visiting my sister a couple days ago. Me and her hang out in her castle. One day, I saw this restaurant called Slippy Burger. A couple days later, she said that the restaurant was empty, or that the place changed somehow. Like maybe it was an off a block or something. This is when the next thing I knew, in the village faction and the city faction, a Slippy Burger existed in the village faction, and a Bronzen Burger, I guess some kind of alternate bootleg variant, popped up in the swamp. This means that different loops can also link to different locations, different timeline, different universes. This also means that different universes can also split their universe with ours. At the most, I'm still figuring out this time loop crap myself, and only heard about it through old Rifco logs from the Hellgate. Also, I gotta go. I have a meeting in 10 minutes with the main authorizer of the Village faction to talk about the upcoming event. But, if you don't know, there is a reason why the loop has been calm lately with only a couple bugs. That's because I have figured out a solution to fixing the problem. Before, there used to be a lot of bugs with the loop, but I figured out a solution. Why don't I transfer all the negative energy, the bad, corrupted negative energy that it comes off of every time it resets, and send it to the Hellgate itself? Because it seems that the Hellgate is a completely different universal standpoint than the actual overworld itself. So it seems sending the universal negative energy to the Hellgate seems to just absorb it into the area with no negative side effects at all. And it's something that is so weird, but at the same time, it's true. I don't know why it's happening. But in the very end, the Hellgate is absorbing all negative energy and is definitely helping with the protection of the people, for sure. This has also been noted by the Raider and City faction that they put up their own separate safety beacon in case of an emergency of the big one that I have in the Village faction turning off and causing another mistake. So for now, we are in a safe predicament until something bad happens. But for now, I gotta go to the meeting. Enjoy your afternoon, night, and it has been about a week after Christmas. And this has been a mess.